Hello, good morning. Welcome back to a new video. In this video we're going to be continuing our Final Destination review series, so we're going to be reviewing the third installment, Final Destination 3. Like I said, I can't wait to get back into our Final Destination series. So far we've already done part 1 and 2, so this one it's going to be the third installment. There we go. So basically, Final Destination 3 is the third installment in the franchise. It is a standalone sequel. Not a great film, in my opinion. I think the film itself has a lot of issues. It could have been better. I really was hoping that this would be more of a step up from the second film, because I felt like I was let down in the second film, the second movie. Um, but overall, Final Destination 3, it has its problems, it has its moments. It's not a great film in any means necessary. Um, so let's go ahead and get a coffee break, and then we'll come back and review Final Destination 3. Alright, so Final Destination 3, the third installment in the Final Destination franchise, was released in 2006. I believe it was February 2006. I can't really remember, because like I said, I didn't know about it until the film had came out on DVD and stuff like that. But it stars a whole new cast of characters. A lot of these characters you don't have like any actual connection to. Like, you just simply don't care about any of these connections. Like any of these characters, like, you just don't care about them. Like, you don't care if they live or they die. They really don't mean anything. But overall, like I said, we open up the film again, just like the previous two films. The film opens up with a premonition sequence, but this time, instead of an airplane or a log truck, we are now on a roller coaster. So now we basically open up on this movie on a roller coaster. Now it's about the beginning of the movie. We open up in a theme park. Um, I feel like I guess they were trying to do something a little bit more different than they did with the first two films. They really kind of, like, I think a lot of it because, with the first movie essentially being a dead teenager film, they kind of wanted to go back um, to that element, that formula of the first film, kind of ignoring two a little bit. Like I said, none of the characters from the first two films appear. We do hear a voice from Tony Todd. He voices the devil in the beginning of the movie. This is like the first time that he does not actually physically appear in the film, which I was kind of like down. I really wanted to see Tony Todd again, because he really was such a very crucial part of the first two films. Um, but he does. This is the one who doesn't really actually physically appear. It's the first time he does not appear at all as his character. Um, Overall, like I said, I did not really enjoy any of the characters. They were just blanded. They were boring. You didn't really care if they lived or died. Like I said, the film is a standalone sequel, so it's not really more direct to the first two films. But because it is set, I think 5 or 6 years later, I believe. So it's more like more of a standalone story. There is a little bit more foul language in this one. There is a brief nudity scene, but it's not like very graphic, and all that. but which didn't need to be there. I don't know if that was actually part of the story or part of the plot. I have no idea. But it just didn't need to be there. Um, like I said, so we basically open up at this theme park or on this roller coaster. A lot of the characters start to die off very quickly in the scene. Then we once it's all over with, we come right into present day. We realize that it was a premonition that our character Wendy, she has this premonition about the roller coaster crashing and stuff like that. It's and then once that happens, the roller coaster does die. I mean, not die, crash. Sorry, I'm still trying to wake up. So it eventually does crash. And then after that, the the story basically just moves forward. We kind of really just get into the story. I feel like this was. I feel like with Final Destination 3, I think they really just want to keep the film and the story more fast-paced. I think that's kind of what they were aiming for, if you know what I mean. Um, and I didn't like that. I really like the story kind of like, once a big sequence happens, like you kind of just want to get to know the characters. And I really feel like with this one, we really never got to really to know our characters, and that was kind of disappointing to me. Um, and I felt disappointed with this film. I felt very let down. I felt like this film was just let down. I mean, it was a letdown. It, I didn't, I know a lot of people like this one. I know a lot of people consider this one their favorite, one of their favorites of the franchise. It's not mine. If you really want to know what my favorite of the franchise is, it's the first movie. I love the first Final Destination because of all the nostalgia. It was just a simple story. Um, so yeah, we're gonna take another coffee break. Then we're gonna continue on with our review for Final Destination 3. There's the voice of Tony God. All right. So continuing on. So as we get more forward into the plot, we finally get into one of our first actual death sequences, and these are the two female chicks that we see in the beginning of the movie. They're kind of annoying, so basically, you kind of don't care for them. Like, you kind of just hoping they would just die really quickly. So basically, their death is pretty brutal. It's fast. It is a brutal death that they suffer. They basically get burned alive in tanning beds. Um, and it just once that happens, it really just starts to ramp up really quickly. Then we get into Frankie Cheeks. Frankie's Cheeks death is pretty brief, um, and stuff like that. And then I think we just kind of go forward. Then of course we've got the two goth characters. They're okay. They're kind of annoying, so you kind of don't care for them. They're basically we're just simply there just to be there. Um, I've really like I said, none of these characters you don't care about. Like I said, they're not really connected to the first movie, the first two films. They have shared a little connection to the events of the first two movies, so you don't care about any of these characters. That's the thing with the second movie is that we finally learned that all the characters from two are actually connected to all the characters in the events of the first movie. That's what I really liked. I think that was part of my positive about Final Destination 2 is that all of our characters were connected to the original. Um, but overall, like none of these characters are connected. Like I said, this movie is more standalone. It is more of a standalone sequel, so the story and the plot is more standalone, and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, like not much more to say about Final Destination 3 or more of the like talk. I don't have a whole lot more to say. Is that it's not a great story. The plot is terrible. Uh, it's just too fast paced. I feel like they just didn't. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know. I don't think they knew what they were trying to do with this film. Is that they were just trying to rush it, and I didn't like that. Uh, they didn't really give our characters a chance to breathe. They didn't really develop our characters at all, and I didn't like that. I felt more let down. So we're gonna take another coffee break, and then we're gonna get into my positives and my negatives for Final Destination 3, and then we're getting into my thoughts and opinions, my grade, and my rating for Final Destination 3. Alright, moving on. We're now getting into my positives and my negatives for Final Destination 3 of this part and segment of our review for Final Destination 3 as we continue our Final Destination review series. So, my positives, not really much positives except we do get to hear the voice of Tony Todd. That is about it. I think the only other positives that I have is the roller coaster sequence or premonition sequence. Of it seemed more in depth. It seemed like more brutal than we've seen in the first two films. So that is definitely a positive. I did enjoy the roller coaster sequence. That was really cool. Excuse me. That I enjoyed. Um, like I said, none of our I didn't like any of the characters. It's just all of our characters were just dumb. They're stupid, and you just couldn't hope for them to die, and stuff like that. Um, I mean, if you kind of go back into it, also like if you want to like wait, we have such a more of a longer ending than we originally did because that is because they had to redo the ending because I guess when it originally screen tested, it didn't do too well. A lot of people did not like the ending, that it was just so simple. So that is another cool thing I did like. I like the ending a lot more better. I've never seen the actual original ending, so I can't really say much about it. Um, I don't have any more positives, so basically my negatives, all my negatives are basically our characters. I don't like any of the characters. They were just so dull, fleshed out. They were underdeveloped. They just didn't, really have any connection. They basically just didn't connect to the story or the plot, like connect to our original films, like our characters from the first two films. Like I said before, one of my positives of Final Destination 2, that we learned that our characters from that film are connected to the first Final Destination. That was one of my positives about Final Destination 2, but like I said, not many positives for Final Destination 3. It's just, this movie was terrible. It was just, really feel like they really rushed it, and of course some of the CGI is terrible. It seems like outdated, and that's like one of my biggest problems with Final Destination 2, is that the CGI is really crappy. Like, what in the actual fuck? It's terrible. But overall, like I said, not many positives. Negatives are just, a lot of the characters were underdeveloped. They were just annoying. Um, like I said, a lot of our death scenes uh, were okay. Uh, they were just okay, not really that great. Um, overall, those are my positives and my negatives for Final Destination 3. Take another coffee break and then get into my thoughts and opinions. Alright, so we are back again with my final thoughts and opinions on Final Destination 3. So my final thoughts, this film was terrible, it's really bad, I really just didn't care for it. I really wanted to like this film, because like I said, I'm a Final Destination fan, I do, like, this is a good series, but when you have like 3 films that are just terrible, you know something's up. I think a lot of it, since this movie, I don't know how well it did at the box office. I know the reception for the film was not that great, so he kind of really felt like this should have been the end of the franchise. This is where it should have ended. It should have ended as an actual trilogy, instead of adding additional installments. But this should have been where Final Destination should have ended. They should have ended at 3. Overall, it's just not a good film. Like I said, it the it felt too rushed. I felt like they really just rushed it. I don't know what they were trying to do. Like I said, I don't know if they were trying to do something different, trying to give us something more different that they would seen in the first 2 films. Like I said, it's basically kind of the same formula. It's kind of like the same as the first 2 films. The film opens up with a premonition, and then you get it right in, once that happens, the actual disaster happens, and then we get into the actual heart and the story of the plot. Um, Overall, yeah, it's not good. Do I think, for opinions likewise, I think the only thing that I really cared for was Tony Todd. I mean, having Tony Todd back, him coming, doing a voiceover as the devil in the opening of the film, that is like the only thing that I really cared about. And of course, the roller coaster scene. I really enjoyed the roller coaster scene. That was really cool. But overall, Final Destination 3, nah. So now we're going to get into my grade and my rating. So I'm going to give, with really bad acting, bad special effects, bad CGI, and bad characters, I thought Final Destination 3 was meh. I'm going to give it a D minus, because it's terrible. I'm also going to rate Final Destination a 4 out of 10. It's terrible. So that is it, guys. That is this review for Final Destination 3. I look forward to seeing you guys back here next time as we continue our Final Destination series. We'll be coming back soon with Final Destination, Final Destination 4. That's gonna be fun. What a crap show that was. I can't wait to get into that one. I'm really just gonna rip that film apart really just gonna shred that one apart. So I can't wait for that. So definitely look forward to my review for the Final Destination as we continue our Final Destination series. Please like and subscribe. Hit the bell notifications. That way I can see you guys back here next time. Follow me on Instagram at Cinematic Time with Jason. Follow me on Letterboxd at Cinematic Time with Jason. Also, go follow my podcast on Spotify at Cinematic Time with Jason. We're trying to get more followers on there, guys. We're definitely going to be doing a lot more stuff and more depth reviews on there as well. We're doing a lot more reviews and more talking about film, cinema on the podcast. So I can't wait for that. So please go follow on Spotify. Thank you so much for joining me on this review for Final Destination 3 as we continue our Final Destination series. I've already seen all the movies, so I can't wait to continue reviewing them and stuff like that, and then hopefully get into a ranking. I'm definitely going to be ranking all 6 films. That is also the reason why I'm trying to finish up this series now, because we just found out not too long ago that a 7th film is now in development. They're now developing a 7th installment. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. Why can't they just let it be? To me, I feel like it truly ended with Bloodlines. They should just let it end with Bloodlines, because why make another cash grab? Why make another mistake and make this film make 7 another unnecessary sequel cash grab like they did with the Final Destination. We're going to be getting into that once we get into that review. That review is going to be coming soon. I don't know when, but thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys back here next time as we continue our Final Destination series with the Final Destination coming soon. Take care, guys. Love you all. Peace.